Hey folks, I think I am live. Let me know if I am live. I think I've got 6 people in chat. Uh, let's see here. Looks like it's supposed to be working. I'm gonna check myself, make sure that I can actually hear myself and there's no weirdness. That's an ad. Yes. Yep, okay. I can hear myself, so I know that it works. Okay. Hey, Cheap Eric. How's it going, man? Good to see you. It's saying that my bit rate's too high. Not sure if I can change that. Let's see if I can knock it down. Try that. See if that works. Cool. Yeah, glad it's all working. Because I want to show some stuff in Resolve 17, and got to make sure it's all working. Here's another thing. I want to make sure is working. Check this out. Let's see here. Okay, going into my app. Yay! All right. So I got the autofocus finally working with my application with the Sigma 18 to 35. I don't know. I have no idea what the problem was before, but I just could not get the autofocus to work at all. I got you on doing okay. Got you on the computer for the first time ever. So let me know if I'm too talkative, dude. This I put together this stream so that I could get questions or talk with whoever is on, whoever's kind of going to my channel. So please talk. That's the whole point of this. Like, I really, really want more interaction so that I can kind of drive this. So if you have questions or comments, concerns, whatever, let me know, and we'll talk through it. I think the more interaction we have, the better. So I'm not really into just like talking into the ether. So please let me know if you have anything you want to talk about, especially in the first 20 minutes or so. It's like I guess the pre-stream where we can kind of like just talk about stuff and see how everyone's doing until more people kind of show up. So yeah, please talk away. Um, yeah. So this stream. What I'm going to be doing is, let me switch this over. Um, so for this stream, what I'm going to be doing is showing a little bit of DaVinci Resolve 17. So if you don't know, Blackmagic Design released a new, it's kind of weird, it's a beta update. It's like really weird. Like there was this big rollout of a beta, like a public beta of DaVinci Resolve 17. So I find that kind of funny because it's like not full completed software yet, but they're rolling it out anyway, which is fine because I'm going to use it to like experiment with anyway. Um, but the tools that they're giving us are pretty awesome. I like them a lot so far. Just I can see where they're going with it, and they also, from my understanding, kind of borrowed a bit from other companies and their grading software, at least ideas that um, are kind of really interesting and intuitive. So I'm pretty excited that they implemented that. So we now have many ways to kind of grade our footage. So I'll kind of go over those and kind of highlight the ones that I've been playing with, and I've only been using it for maybe like I think an hour and a half or so. Um, so one cheap Eric says that was weird to me too. I went to download it and was surprised it was beta. Yeah, I was really surprised at that they were like kind of hyping up that there was going to be this big rollout of their new version, and it was it was a beta. Like, I just think that's really weird. And then what's really interesting about it is that it has even more features than the beta that I was seeing um, uh, in 16 point whatever, like whatever they had as their beta before. So I just thought that was really, really strange. Um, it just seems like such a weird thing to do, you know? So, uh, also, just before I forget, Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. Happy Veterans Day. I don't, yeah, I don't know if there's anybody in the chat who is a veteran, but there you go. One Cheap Eric says, interested to hear your thoughts on how it'll change your workflow for client projects, if at all. The HDR wheels are definitely going to be used because they, I think, are a much more customizable and robust way of doing grading with wheels. And I think that that's a really great feature that they've added. Instead of having, this is what I like about it, it's kind of an innovation. I'm not sure if anybody had come out with it before, but basically they expanded your log wheels or your primaries to from 3 plus the overall. Now you've got 7. So you went from 3, you had your shadows, midtones, and highlights in log, and then you had your lift, gamma, gain for primaries, and then you had your overall wheel. They've now expanded that to 7 total, and then they have it where you can customize where you want, how much roll off you want between each different tone, and then also where each marker is for those tones. And you can also see what's really cool is, and I'll show all this, but what's really cool is they give you a line graph, so you can actually see how your line is being manipulated uh, as you change the wheels, which I think is great. I've been using something like that. There's a tool called, I think it's Film Curve or something like that, that was created by Bald Avengers OFX. And I'd been using that because, like, as you change the shoulder and everything, you can actually see how your line is manipulated in a graph. And I like seeing that because if you want to kind of match a tonal response that you see in like a film stock or something else, if you can get that line to be similar, you should be able to get a similar look. So I think that's pretty cool. Hey, Motion VFX, good to see you. Good to see you. So yeah, I think that the HDR wheels are a really, really good thing. I can really see myself using that in a lot of ways. Right now, when I do for client work, like basically it's for most of the time when I'm doing grading, it's taking um, stock footage and then kind of grading that to look, either have like a similar look across a project, or just to add like some fixes to it. A lot of times, like in stock footage, they like blow the highlights out of way out for some reason. So I want to kind of bring that back in or have a better roll off to it. So with how I do it, I've been using aces and then using the log wheels to adjust those ranges, like especially in the shadows and the highlights, to kind of bring them back into reality. But with the log wheels, not the log wheels, with the HDR wheels, it will give even more customizability. So yeah, that's how I see myself using that stuff. Hope you're not hearing me like drink my drink. That might sound weird. um, let's see. So what have I been watching? I know I've seen. What did I see that I really liked? I've been watching Schitt's Creek. I'm still like 2 seasons away from finishing that. It's really, really great. Oh, here's what I wanted to talk about. Hi, Williams Ferry. I guess it's Productions. Not sure what that means, but good to see you. Um, I actually was playing a game. What the heck is the name of it? What is Yeah, Phasmophobia. So I've been playing Phasmophobia. Incredible, incredible game. Just played it last night for the first time. It's one of the most interesting games I've ever played, especially if you're playing with people who are interested in ghosts. Man, it's like crazy. Uh, Strongly recommended. If you play video games and you want to play something that's scary, play that. It's pretty awesome. Um, yeah, it's pretty awesome. I think I'm hanging here. Hmm. Wonder why I'm hanging. Hmm. Oh, okay. So that's weird. So on my YouTube studio, it says that I'm buffering forever, but evidently I'm not. So that's really strange. Hmm. Yeah, there's something wrong with this. So I'm gonna have to rely on you guys to tell me if my connection is messing up or not because this thing is broken. It looks like. So yeah, let me know if I start buffering like crazy because there's no way for me to monitor that now. Amazing, amazing. So I'm gonna have to put this over here. Okay, so I'm gonna have to monitor that. Gave up on Schitt's Creek after 2 episodes. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I think it's great. I think it's a great show because it has a lot of comedic elements. Um, has a lot of comedic elements that I think are really wonderful, and they allow you to kind of laugh at the expense of these people that are very privileged while keeping it from being too cruel. And that's like one of the problems that I think a lot of people have with something like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like, I don't have a problem with it, but I know a lot of people who don't like it because it just gets too mean and very cruel in the way that characters treat each other. So, what I like is that in this show, relationships and failing relationships are not treated as something to make fun of in that way, where it's like a high degree of meanness. It feels very light by comparison, and I really kind of like that. So it's a nice contrast to a lot of sitcoms that I have seen where there's you have privileged people or you have people who are kind of like start off as not nice people and then they kind of change over time. Seeing it be a little bit more wholesome is kind of I kind of like that. um, and I think what's his name, Daniel Levy, I think he's great. Yeah, see, it says it's buffering again and I'm not sure why. So I'm just gonna, oops, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm gonna have to monitor this. This sucks. It keeps saying I'm buffering, but I'm not. So, really weird. So yeah, I'm just gonna go through and answer some questions that I was asked on my page if I can access it. Let's see here. Let me check. Yeah, so I'm not buffering. I'm not sure why it keeps saying that I'm buffering. So, okay. So we'll go and access. If I look weird while I'm typing and everything, it's because my office stuff is usually set up over here, and I'm having to look this way. So I have like my lighten everything up this way if it looks weird. That's why like sometimes when you'll see probably later when I go into Resolve, it looks like I'm clicking around more than I should. It's because it's all my setup is all wonky in order to account for doing this. Okay, good. Yeah, thanks. Let me know if you're getting any breaks because it keeps saying I'm buffering. And I'm just have no idea why it's doing that. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a few things that I saw on the discussion forums, and then also that I talked about in my discussion group on Facebook. If you're not a member, there's the Facebook group. So if you want to be a part of the Facebook group and see like when I'm talking about stuff, or if you have questions, or if you want to talk about something, or work with people, or try to get people to work with you on a project, whatever it is, head over there and send in a request to join, and make sure you answer the questions, or else I will not allow you in. Yeah, I think it's a good place. So. I got a question here from One Cheap Eric says, had a question, do you ever grade, then export the footage, then cut that? I'm trying to think of a way to shoot in BRAW, but keep rendered version of files so I can go back to old timelines. So you're asking if you, so for example, are you asking like, okay, I have Blackmagic RAW, I do a grade, I render that grade, and then I put that into basically like an editing timeline. Yes, I do that for more complex projects, especially that are going to have a lot of nodes and a lot of work being done, because the reason for that is that you can essentially run a bunch of cuts and not have to re-render all of the nodes that you've done for the grade. Okay, so if you're, let's say you're shooting with like the Pocket 6K and you've got a GTX 1070, right? Like not the greatest of all graphics cards, but it works fine. Every time you cut and then grade, let's say it's a 5-minute video, and you're going to do probably at least 3 or 4 iterations of the cut, you're looking at all of that render time that you've just spent to render out the sequence. Not only are you going to have to recut it and then run all those nodes back through and render it through your GPU and everything, you're also going to be wasting your time. Okay, because usually once you've got the look locked down, you shouldn't need to have to add that into your cut every time you re-render. So I would say, unless you're working on a project that's very short, like some of the ones that I do are just, it's an H.264, and I need to do a grade of that, and I might just do a quick one and then render it out. That kind of makes sense. It's just a minor color correction, and you're not going to be doing 10 iterations. It's just a quick turnaround, okay? Totally different. But even on my work that I'm doing for education, when I have my shots, I don't cut all of those and do the grade all in the same timeline. I do the grade, lock down the look, render that, and that goes into the cut sequence. So that way, when I do my inevitable 3 to 4 iterations, it's a lot faster to do the cut. And also, if you're going from like a Pocket 6K, like I was saying before, and you're rendering eventually to an HD timeline, you're wasting a lot of resources by running the grade and the cut all at the same time. If you're using a Pocket 6K, right, which is 6K image, it's huge. Okay, it is for a computer to process all that, even in BRAW or whatever. That's a lot to ask the computer to do. So when you do that and you're eventually going to be delivering in HD, there's not really there's not a reason to do it. Okay, so for your sanity and to save your equipment and to be able to turn around a faster cut, lock down the look, render those shots out, you know, and you can even do the super sample into HD from there if you really want to, and then you can cut and render a lot faster for your cuts. That's my opinion. I think that's a much faster workflow. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is what I just said. So you're saying it's a space constraint of Blackmagic Raw, don't have the space for it for personal projects. Okay, so render out clips before you put in a timeline to cut. I think so, One Cheap Eric. Another thing that you can do, which I've done, is if you're using Resolve, you make sure you save different versions every time you do anything, but I have like a project file that's for the grade, and I have a project file for the edit. And I can do the edit. Let's say you just have a LUT that you've used with Blackmagic Raw or whatever. You can put that LUT and use the LUT for when you're doing your cuts. And when you, so that way when you do your render, you can use the same project, use the same DaVinci Resolve project file, have everything together. So if you need to make any quick adjustments, you can do that. But once I move from the grade to the edit, I'll update that version to now an edit instead of a grade version of a project file. It'll be like edit version 1. So you can try that too. If you don't have space, that's a different thing. For your case, that would mean I could get rid of the BRAW files once I finish the project. Then I could go back in a few months if I wanted to look at the old edit. If it's for a personal project, yeah, but if it's for a project that you're being paid for, you should just, in my opinion, you add the cost to keep those original files to the price of the product. In my opinion, you're going to want to render out as an intermediary or an archival kind of sequence or file. You're going to want to pick like something like ProRes or DNxHR anyway. So it's going to be a big file. I mean, going from Blackmagic Raw to something like that, like it's not going to be that much. And my opinion is for Blackmagic Raw, for the most part, even on the Pocket 4K, I don't see much of a reason to go higher than 8.1 for most projects, even paid projects. I don't see a reason for it. You get like a bit more quality, but if you're worried about space, you're probably not working on the kind of project that requires Q0 or 3.1. That's just my opinion, though. Okay. Okay. So this is something that I did want to talk about. There was, I forget where it was on the, I forget where it was in the forums, but somebody was like doing a comparison between like, maybe it was like the Red Komodo or an XT4 with the Blackmagic Pocket 4K. Oh no, that's what it was. It was a comparison video of the Sony a7S III against the Blackmagic Pocket 6K, I think. And it was by a creator, nothing against the creator, right? But the creator sells lookup tables, okay? So, and they put this thing together, and the guy clearly says that he used his own lookup tables in the comparison video. And people started like commenting on how bad the color science was from the Sony. Okay, you guys need to understand this. If you're saying that, you need to understand that what you're commenting on isn't the color science of the camera in a video like that. You're commenting on the color grading skills and tastes of the person who made the video. Okay, so you can complain about their ability to get good skin tones or a good highlight roll off with something like a Sony a7S III. That's totally fair, but that videos like that, unless they show the raw data and information and then give that to you so you can look at it and manipulate it, there's nothing else you can really get from it other than you're looking at someone else's skill and expertise at working with footage. That's really it. And what I've noticed over the years is you'll hear things, people will keep saying things as if it's true. One of those is the whole Sony colors are bad and it always looks too digital and it always looks terrible. It's totally not true. And problems with their color science. With color, basically, as long as you've got enough data, you can do whatever the hell you want with it. Okay? If the Crown shot on a Sony f55 is a Sony camera, you have no excuse other than you can't do it. Okay? With something like a Sony a7S III, where you can get, I think they've got like 10-bit like files out of it, where I've seen that you can get colors that look pretty much exactly like Canon, and they look pretty much exactly like what you get out of an ARRI. Okay, depending on your skill level and how used to using those something like S-Log, the more used to it you are, and the more you understand how to use it and how to grade it properly, you're going to be able to do things either easier, or you won't be able to make what you want at all. And I'll show you in Resolve today what I mean by that, because there were a lot of complaints about the Pocket 4K and people saying that the highlight roll-off of the Pocket 4K was terrible, when in reality it wasn't the camera, it was how the data was interpolated. Okay, I will show that. So and it's not just that's a problem with these tests. There's nothing really objective about them in general, because again, you have to use a Rec 709 conversion, and most people are not going to put in the time and effort that it takes to try to match cameras to make them look as close to each other as possible, including highlight roll-off and the colors, including skin tones. You can get them to look good and look like each other. Okay. And most of the time when I see those test videos, it's just throwing a Rec 709 conversion LUT, and every conversion LUT is a subjective way of doing it. In order to really see things, you've got to do like a technical grade, you can do creative grades, and you got to make them look like each other and get whatever you can out of the camera. Otherwise, if you just, shoot and throw a LUT on it, you're not able to see everything that camera is able to do. You can't really see its color science. You're seeing the color science of the person who made the LUT. Okay. Another thing is people talking about sharpness and noise. And you can't really tell the sharpness so much of a camera by just having a model moving around in front of it. Okay. You can't really tell because you have someone moving, there's motion blur, and there's also human error involved in that, especially when it's what I usually see, which is very shallow depth of field where only the eyeballs are in focus. You're not really going to see sharpness that way. You're not going to see it, okay? The way to do it is the boring way, where you shoot a test chart and you stop the lens down to where there's no possible way that you're not getting the best part of the lens, and that that you've got it sharp and in focus, that flat board, okay? And you have to use a chart to do that. Hardly anybody on YouTube wants to do that because it is boring, and it will not get you clicks. Okay. Um, if you want to see the way that you're supposed to do it, in my opinion, and he doesn't even do videos like, video comparisons so much. Dustin Abbott, he has like hour-long lens reviews, okay? And even his have flaws in them, but they're as close as you're going to get on YouTube, at least that I've seen, in getting a real, as far as he can, objective view of things. Now, you have other problems, like he usually only has one lens, but who really is going to test like 10 lenses to see if they got a good copy or a bad copy of different lenses, right? And the same thing with camera bodies. Sometimes the camera body itself has a problem and you don't know because it's the only one you've ever used, okay? And I can go on about why these comparison videos kind of suck, but most of the time, whatever you come into it with, if you think that Sony colors are always bad, you're going to come away thinking the exact same thing, regardless of what the information shows. Okay, and this is what I found really interesting is when I was watching this video, there was a very clear moment where I said, "There's no way he tried to make them look similar." Because he had the saturation of the highlight roll-offs completely different between the two cameras, and they supposedly were his same kind of LUT, like the same kind of look was supposed to be there. In one of the cameras, there was a light, like a practical light, and it rolled off to yellow, and the other one was rolling off to desaturated. And I'm like, why aren't they the same? You can do that in Resolve, like you can make them look the same. So I don't know why he decided to not make them look similar or try to make them look similar, but that's what he did. So that's why, as much effort as people put into those, that's all fine. I don't have a problem with that. And I don't have a problem with people making content because that's their opinion. That's they're making their own thing and showing you how they use it. But to try to get any objective information out of that, it's just not possible. So there's that. And also, I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but I think I was getting trolled by somebody. Just because a LUT says that it's Rec 709 on it does not mean it's a technical LUT, okay? You should know this. A lookup table is literally an interpretation that somebody used using whatever gear, whatever lenses, whatever camera, whatever white balance, etc., that they use to create that lookup table, okay? It's not a technical thing. If it says Rec 709 on it, all it's saying is that the LUT is designed for a Rec 709 color space. That's all that it means. It doesn't mean that it's fully technical, no stylistic choice used, none of that, okay? That's not what it means at all. I shouldn't have to say that, but it looked like either somebody was trolling me or they didn't understand what that means. Okay, let's check the chat. Nobody's saying anything. Let me check, make sure that I'm not slow. Live chat. Yeah, okay. One cheap error. So I should be shooting on my cell phone. Let me see what he says here. So one cheap Eric saying, continuation from before that it's all the stuff that he's shooting is for YouTube, so I should be shooting on my cell phone. You can shoot with whatever you want. I kind of get annoyed like when I see people complain that other people want to shoot videos of their dogs. Dude, I don't care what you shoot. Like if you want to shoot something on a Red camera that is just your backyard birds, who's anyone to say that you're wrong for doing that? You should just use whatever you want. Whatever you want to use to make whatever content you want, you should just do it. We can go back and forth about whether or not it's necessary to use a higher end camera for whatever project you might want to do. But dude, it's your life. You do whatever you want. If it's a matter of space, the easy answer is to just buy more memory space or dump footage that you're never going to use. I've shot, I don't know how much practice footage with the Pocket 4K just messing around because I wanted to. And I've shot, I don't know, maybe tens of thousands of photos that were just to test autofocus and just to go around and shoot, and they just didn't make the cut. I don't keep stuff like that because there's no reason for me to. So if that's the kind of stuff you're keeping, I would just dump it, you know. Yeah, so here's another thing that I wanted to talk about. Okay. So I'm gonna try to use lenses as a prop here, but so this is said a lot in photography and in video, and it's a really it's a very incorrect statement. Okay, so what I see happen a lot, and the first time I'd heard it, it was someone on YouTube who's kind of not nice, and he was saying that, you know, primes are wonderful and you should pretty much only shoot with primes because the image quality is so much better. And if you complain about, you know, not being able to zoom, then you should stop being lazy and zoom with your feet. You can't do that, okay? Physics says you cannot zoom with your feet. It is impossible. Let me explain. So this is a zoom lens. This is the Sigma 50-100. Okay. Hold on a second. Maybe I can autofocus. Give me a moment, because then I can make it easier for you to see what I'm talking about. Okay. Look at that. Okay. So see this zoom ring. I'm going from 50 to 100. A prime can never do this. Okay? Moving this lens, if I had it at 50 and I wanted to zoom with my feet, me moving this lens closer to the subject is not the same thing as doing this. Okay? If I'm trying to get matched 100 millimeter field of view. Okay? Let me focus back. Yeah. So they're not the same thing, because in physics, when you take a lens and you move it, you're changing your position of that piece of glass and the subject. Okay? I'm pretty sure you guys have all seen there's a chart, and it shows, you know, going from, I think it's like 24 millimeter all the way up to like 200 millimeter, and how a face changes when you get the same framing that a longer lens would have by just walking closer to the subject. Okay, so once you do that, you've completely changed the perspective. You've completely changed how the world around you is going to appear. And when you move closer, the roundness of the subject will become more apparent. And the further away you are from the subject, the flatter the subject will appear relative to the background. Okay? You need to understand that, because understanding that foundation of physics and lenses will explain to you why you can't zoom with your feet. That very simple thing. Okay? A 24 millimeter lens cannot, by just zooming with your feet to get a headshot, give you the same look as a 200 millimeter lens. It doesn't happen. It won't happen. Okay? So this flattening of a face, for example, with a longer lens is what happens as you get further away. It's not magic happening in here. It's physics. Okay? So even if you use a 24 millimeter lens as far away as 100 millimeter, you could crop it in to where the flatness would look very similar. Okay, it should look the same. If anything, it'd be like a field curvature difference. But usually we don't have resolution that high. Okay, so physics says you can't zoom with your feet. End of story. Okay, now let's assume. Let me check if there's questions. Okay. Now let's assume that you don't care. Let's assume that you're shooting video and you're like, look, I want to use like a gimbal and I want to put like, instead of using an 18-55, I'm just going to pick a 35 millimeter lens and I'm going to put that on my gimbal and I'm going to zoom with my feet, get closer or further away when necessary. Okay. More understandable, but also, if you're going to do that, you have to understand that in real life, zooming with your feet is, unless you know the situation, if you know that you're going to have room to actually move where you're talking about, if you don't know that, you might as well bring the zoom, because I experienced it firsthand using a prime while I was on vacation, how annoying it is to not have a zoom lens when you do not have control of your surroundings. There are fences, there are gates, there are pools of water, there are lines of tourists, there are full buildings, there are velvet ropes. There are all kinds of barriers in real life that will prevent you from getting into the exact spot that you'd want to be to get your shot. This exists in photography and it exists in videography. I went out to a park just the other week and I was using a 27 millimeter. And I was very frustrated because I wanted to get these fish. It was like where the light was hitting the pond in a perfect way. And I wanted to get shots of these fish, the koi, swimming around in the pond. I couldn't get closer to them by moving my camera closer because there was a fence and there was a pool of water in the way. I couldn't zoom with my feet. So even in the sense of not caring that physics says you can't do it and you just want to, get closer or further away, there are many cases where you're not going to be able to do that. Okay? So if someone tells you, well, just zoom with your feet, if they're going to say something like that, just understand that they don't know what they're talking about, because that's not a thing. Okay? You cannot really do that most of the time in real life. Okay? If you're going to make a choice about using a prime lens over a zoom, it's not that. Okay? This, let me show you. This is a valid reason. 50 millimeter and 50 millimeter. Okay? If all I was going to do, if I knew I was doing a shoot where all I was going to use was a 50 millimeter lens, dude, if the image quality was similar, what am I going to pick? Which one of these? Look how small this is. And they're both the same aperture, f1.8, f1.8. I mean, honestly, this Canon sucks. Okay, so the image quality is not the same, but just imagine they were, or similar enough. I'd be like, obviously use the light 50 millimeter f1.8. Okay, and okay, so that's valid in my opinion. Lighter lens, smaller, easier. You could put it in like a jacket pocket. I mean, this thing is heavy as hell. Obviously, another reason to pick a prime over a zoom is if the prime actually has better image quality than the zoom, which, considering how many zooms I've used recently that are incredible, it's not that many primes. It's really not. There's a lot of really great zooms out there, and with corrections, especially for photography and post, dude, there's not that much of a difference that would really be relevant to me for what I do most of the time. Now, I can understand why many other people would like primes, but that's a whole other thing. So it's not even the case where every prime is going to have better image quality. It's certain lenses are going to have better image quality than others. Okay. So it's those kinds of things. Okay. Primes usually, for less money, for the kind of wide aperture that they can have, usually you're going to get a better deal if that's the only focal length you're going to use. A 50 f1.8 you can find super cheap, like 100, $200. A zoom with the 50 f1.8, there's only one that I know of, and it's the Sigma, and it's like $1,000. So obviously the price difference is another reason that you might pick one over the other. The weight, the size, all of those things make sense. Zooming with your feet, no, not a thing. Okay. Pascal says it's down in Canada. I don't know what that means. It's down in Canada. One Cheap Eric says that 50 millimeter looks like the Panasonic Zoom 1235 f2.8. Looks like a great pocket lens size wise. It's a Canon 50 millimeter f1.8 STM, and it's fine. Oh, somebody's going to join. Let's see. YouTube. Yes. Okay, approve. It's okay if you stop the lens down to like 2.8. The Canon 50s just are, compared to other 50s, dude, the Canon 50s are not good. The new ones for RF are very good. Well, I don't know about the 1.8 that they made, but the 1.2, was it 1.2? I think it was 1.2. Dude, that's a good 50. But the old, like, even like the old FDs are terrible. At the wider apertures, the older 50s, the 50 f1.4 isn't worth the money, and the 51.2, in my opinion, is not worth the money on EF mount. It's this, other than the RF, this is the only 50 I'm okay owning from Canon. I think they mostly suck. The chromatic aberration that they have at the wider apertures is unacceptable. Pascal says YouTube was down in Canada. We are back. What do you think of the new DaVinci Color Space? Would that work better for Fuji X-T3 or Pocket 6K? That's a good question, Pascal. I don't know yet. I'm going to look at Resolve 17 in a few minutes. So give me some time so that some people can join, and I will take a look at that. The Resolve Color Space is a little interesting. So I'll talk about that. Let me see here. So that was lenses. I think there was another thing. Let me see. Oh, okay. This was another thing that I wanted to make sure that everybody knows. Tim says it's down in the UK as well. YouTube's down? Maybe that's why I was getting buffering issues. I wonder what happened. Man, I'm going to have to start using Twitch, because YouTube is being weird. Anyway, okay, so there was somebody who had posted on a forum an image of their sensor on the Pocket 4K or 6K, and there was all this stuff all over it that looked like it was either very thick dust or fungus. And they were based in India, if I remember correctly. And I'd seen the same thing, people that are in the Caribbean and some other areas that are very moist. Here's the problem, okay? If you live in an area that has high humidity for any time of the year, okay? Especially if you're in a place like, I've been to India, I know how moist it gets, okay? There is no option that you've got other than to either get air conditioning and make sure that you keep it on to dry out the house, or you need to get a not a dry box, a dry cabinet. Okay, you need to get a dry cabinet, because fungus needs, in order for fungus to grow, it needs warmth, it needs food, it needs darkness, and it needs moisture. It needs those things. So first of all, warmth. If you're in a humid environment, generally it's warm. Okay, you're talking over 80. Usually 90 degrees higher, okay? So it's going to be hot. And then you've also, if it's a very moist area, you got high humidity, that gives moisture, okay? The food is dust. Now, regardless of how clean you keep your lenses, you're going to get dust. It's going to get inside, it's going to be on the outside, okay? And the sensor is no different, okay? You bring it outside, it's going to get dust on it, okay? That's the food. And darkness, usually we turn our lights off at night, right? So and fungus spores are everywhere. Okay. They are absolutely everywhere. You cannot get away from them. Mold will grow in the cleanest of bathrooms. Okay. It will grow eventually if you leave the conditions that I just talked about going on. Okay. So if you do not get a dry cabinet, I can guarantee you, if you live in a area that has high humidity, such as the American South, especially in a place like Florida or Alabama or North Carolina, Texas, okay. If you live in like India, if you live in the Caribbean, like you need to get a dry cabinet, okay. If you can't for some reason get one, the only other way that I can think of to prevent that is to every single day go out and aim your gear to where the sunlight can hit it in order to use the UV rays to kill off whatever fungus might be in there. Okay, so that's the other way to do it. The only problem is you're going to burn out your sensor doing that. You can do that with lenses pretty easily, but with sensors, like you're gonna burn it. Okay, so those are the only ways. Like if you don't take care of your equipment, it's gonna have problems. Okay, so I keep all of my stuff in a dry cabinet. Okay, and I really take care of my equipment. If I sell any equipment to anyone, it will be in pristine condition, guaranteed. Okay, um, so so do that. Emotion VFX says, my wife destroyed my Yongnuo EF 50mm, no loss at all. What was funny, Emotion VFX, was I watched a funny review where the guy had the Yongnuo and the Canon 50 f1.8, and he was like, couldn't really tell the difference. And I was like, ay, that should not be a thing. When Sheepberg says, fun hanging out, my dude, gotta go. Look forward to watching back Resolve 17 part of the stream. Oh, and appreciate your commentary on shooting with whatever you want for whatever you want. BMPCC 4K for YouTube all day, every day. Yeah, man, like do whatever you want. Like if someone tells you you shouldn't or couldn't or can't do what you want, like just do it anyway. When it comes to like using equipment, just do it. There's no reason that if you want to do stuff, if you just want to experiment and borrow an expensive camera and expensive lenses just to do it, unless for some reason you can't afford it or it's going to cause you emotional or physical harm, I don't see any reason not to do it. Shoot all the videos if you want of your dog. I don't care. Okay, so let's look at Resolve 17. So in order to do this, I'm going to have to keep my phone visible so I can see you guys commenting and make sure that everything looks right. So do that. Okay, I'll make sure that everything went through on OBS. Just checking here, and should switch over. Yeah, okay, so it should have switched over. There it is. Okay, so there's a couple things that I'll note. The way that things are shown here is a little bit different. The representation here of the wheels is very different, and for me, I don't like this because it's different. This looks a lot more like what I'm used to though in Capture One. If we go, this is just the primaries here. The temperature, tint, contrast, the pivot, the ranges, midtone detail, color boost, everything is on the same page now. So if you remember before, when you would go through these different things, there would be like 2 tabs, and you'd have to go through there to choose like the temperature and the tint and all those things, and then there was like color boost, shadows, and everything else on a different tab. So I'm glad that they put everything together. It's going to take a minute for you to get used to it. Like I'm still getting used to it. I'm used to having to do it the slow way. So just keep in mind that you're probably going to have to remember that this is going to be slightly different from what you had before. They have a lot more color and like just little symbol doodads that tell you what everything is instead of it being very engineery looking. what I mean by that is having a visual representation of things usually helps people, especially if they're not like more analytically minded, to see what's going on, which I think is a really great change. I think make doing things like this actually helps make it easier for people to understand what everything is, and you can quickly see it. So that's a good thing. Uh, so that's that. I don't think there was anything different with these. I'll go over the raw tab in a second, but I'll just kind of do the highlights in here. So here's a new thing is the HDR. Okay, and I'll go into this in more detail, but this is pretty cool. So if we go back to the primaries, you've got your lift, gamma, gain, and then you have offset, right? And then if we go into log, we've got the shadow, midtone, highlights, and then the offset. Okay, so we've got 4 and 4. But with HDR, this new tool here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is going to stay here. 5, 6, 7. So now we've got 7 wheels that we can use, okay? Which I think is awesome. We have also some more tools here like a black offset, temperature, tint, hue, contrast, pivot, and all these and midtone details. I think this is the same as the primaries, the midtone details, but I did notice that the temperature and tint seems to operate differently in, excuse me, seems to operate differently in the HDR tab than the primaries tab. I'll just kind of show you what I mean. So we'll pull it all the way to 4000. See this, how blue it is and weird. So if we go to HDR and we pull it all the way, look how it doesn't get cartoony. It kind of just looks like we used a blue filter. So I think that this is really interesting. I don't know why they did it this way, but I like this. This is a welcome change. I think it just gives us another tool that we can use. Let's see if it does it the other way. So we'll go all the way 4000 with orange, and it kind of gives us this. If we do it here, how bad does it get? Yeah, see, look at that. Okay. So it's almost like this is a gross adjustment, and then in HDR, it's much more of a fine-tuned or natural adjustment to doing your temperature and your tint. I think that's really interesting. I don't know if they even really talked about that in the DaVinci Resolve 17 video that Blackmagic Design released, but that is a very different way that that tool works. Okay, so that's worth noting. This thing is the same. It just has a different representation. Noise reduction is the same. The difference is, I believe they have, yeah, they have a noise reduction OFX here. So let's just put that in and see. Yeah, it looks like the same stuff. So I guess this can be helpful if you're doing something like say you've got a bunch of things grouped. Let's actually show you what I mean instead of just saying it. So no, I think it would be the same thing. I'm not sure why they have this. Maybe there's a reason that I don't know. I guess, you know, you got the global blend in there. Maybe there's a reason for it that I just don't know. But it's there. So, oh, you know what? I haven't tried this yet, but maybe you can add this into a lookup table. I'll have to check that. I'm not sure. Streaming in Australia is getting bad now. Sorry, expressive imagery. I really do apologize. I'm going to be making a video about this stuff. I hope it doesn't break or anything. Okay. Let's, okay, so we're going through here. This looks the same. I didn't really see any difference in the way that the curves were shown. I'll go over this one for right now. Qualifiers, these all look the same. Masking looks the same, or power windows. YouTube's down in Spain too. Man, what is going on? Is it all of YouTube is screwed up, or because I'm watching it on my phone right now and I don't see any issues. That's really unfortunate. I was looking forward to this. YouTube, what have you done? Anyway, this doesn't look any different. This doesn't look... Oh, this magic mask thing, I'll go over this in a minute, but the way that it works is like many other auto maskers I've seen. Um, so essentially, you can draw a line around what you want to mask, and then you should see, I think this is it, mask overlay. See, I found that sometimes this mask overlay works and sometimes it doesn't. Okay, there it goes. So if you look here, I've got, just by drawing these lines, I now have a mask that goes around the subject here. And you can refine it. Okay. You can, blur it. You can basically do pretty much anything that you would do with just regular masking controls with this. The only difference is that you're using lines and drawing stuff to make it. It's very similar if you used the this qualifier here for colors. It's very similar to how this operates, and whatever you draw around, it will create a mask around that. So it's just very, very similar to that. I don't know if you guys have ever used the 3D qualifier before, but it works. The way that it keys is very, very similar to that. So I can't say how useful this is going to be for me, because I've used auto masking before, and most of the time it does not do what I want. Most of the time I still need to roto stuff. So I'll just try to track this a little bit. Stop it there and see how well it did. It looks okay. Where I always worry about it with stuff like this is edges like that. A lot of times you'll see this get all wibbly, like it'll kind of breathe in and out on the edges, and that's really terrible usually with stuff like this. So I mean, you're gonna have to experiment with this, see what you get with it, but on most of the shots where I'd want to use something like this, it just is not usable. So maybe there's a trick I don't know yet because it's relatively new. Uh-oh. Okay. Okay, we still got 6 people, so it can't be too bad. Let me know if you guys are seeing any other problems. Okay, do that. Uh-oh. Okay. Uh-oh. Let me try. Okay. So there are some bugs I've been noticing. Like you just saw there, when I had got done with the auto masking and I tried to go into different things, it kind of like got weird. So it might be that it was trying to draw, like show me the mask that I drew, but it wasn't there. I don't know. Could be something. I might just not be used to it. Okay, so that's that thing. Yeah, and I think most of the other things are pretty similar as far as the tools go. The one that I really want to talk about is this thing, which is the warp. This is pretty cool, and I'll go into this in more detail, but the long and short of it is that there's you've got your colors here, okay? So these are all mapped very similar to the vector scope, okay? So is this 2x? Yeah. So if you look here, we've got our, vector scope. Here's red, red's over here. Yellow, yellow's over here. Green, green's down here, and so on. Okay, so this is essentially a representation of, what you can see with the vector scope. So when I'm doing this, I actually keep these both open, and I can see what's going on. And one way that I see using this, color warper is to deal with things like skin tones. But first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show how you can just select something and change it. So let's make this a little bit bigger. And let's say my shirt here, it's purple, but let's say that I want to change the hue of this thing, okay? Now, usually what I'd have to do is I'd have to go into the curves. I might go to hue versus hue. I could grab this and then I would, rotate it. Okay. And then I need to fine tune the edges here to make sure that I don't get banding depending on how much information I've got and how big that sample is. But let's say that I want to do this a lot faster. Now, if I use this arrow here and I click and drag, now keep an eye down there on the bottom left. You see that red target that appeared? I know it might be small, okay? But if I move it with the mouse, it goes wherever I'm pulling it. So if I go up, it will rotate toward magenta. If I pull it down, it will rotate towards cyan, you see? Okay. And it moves around. If you watch alongside with the vector scope, you can see what it's doing to the chromacity of that color. So I think that's pretty cool. You can more freely make adjustments and quicker, I think, sometimes to get what you want. So let's say I want to do teal for this and get its saturation. I'll go there. So I'll undo that just so I can do it again and explain what I'm doing. So we'll just reset it. So what I'm going to do, okay, this is purple. I want to pull it to be cyan. Okay, I want it to be like a teal color. If I click with the left mouse click and I drag down, it moves a hue. See? And again, if you keep looking down here at the vector scope while I'm doing it too, like keep your eyes going from here to here to here, and you can see how it all kind of moves together, okay? So I go down and I can see that I'm changing the hue toward cyan. I move up, it moves toward magenta, right? And then what I didn't explain before was also the saturation. If I go toward the middle, it desaturates, goes closer to white, right? If I pull it out toward the edge, it gets more saturated, just like how your vector scope operates, right? Okay, so this, I think, is very, very helpful, not only to help illustrate what this vector scope means and does and how it can help you, but I think it also is pretty intuitive. If I go and look at the vector scope and I'm like, okay, this color, I want to come down like this. Okay, well, I just grab it and I move it, just like that. And I'm done, okay? So, boom, I've changed that. And also, all these points correspond to different chromacities and hues. So, like, these are all hues of, these are all magenta as far as the hue is, but these are all different saturation points. So once you pull it, you can, adjust how those all work in relation to each other so that there's more of a gradual turn. Now, if I take this and I, start messing about with it, you can see down in the vector scope that there is like a spread happening, and it's over here. Might be harder to see. But this, with this point, has, it's changing, okay? See that? Anyway, so if you mess about too much with these, it's kind of like if you do curve editing, like the closer the dots are on your curve or the points are on your curve, the more likely you're going to have banding or artifacting. But by doing this, you can have a nice gradual ramp for the hue to different hues. So I hope that makes sense. Another thing that I think is really helpful for this is that instead of when you go hue versus hue and you're doing adjustments to skin tones, you can actually grab certain parts of the certain chromacity values and kind of pull those to make a hue versus hue adjustment instead of the overall hue, if that makes sense. So, before you might grab this part of the skin and say, I want to make that look more toward the pink side to get the skin to kind of more go along this skin line. And then you might grab, try to grab another part. But the thing is that there's multiple tonalities the skin, especially when it's like horrible lighting in here. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to do, which is what a lot of LUTs tend to do, is pull the skin to be more in line with the skin tone line to kind of reduce the amount of colors in here, kind of get it more uniform. Okay, this is kind of a form of digital makeup. So I pull this toward the middle, and then I can pull this part this way, and you can kind of move them back and forth until you get the overall look you want. So let's say I want that kind of skin tone for this. Okay, so we'll show how much of a difference that makes. So we get the skin more along the line, the skin tone line, and kind of remove this red in my skin, because I'm in my mid 30s and still have acne, so go figure. You can actually get your skin to be more like what you want without affecting these more saturated colors that might be over here. Okay, and there can be a ramp to it, so you can avoid artifacting, and you can avoid what I always found was kind of annoying, which was trying to figure out at what point these dots over here, how far down they need to be. Usually I'd have to go down toward yellow to avoid full, artifacting issues. So anyway, I think this is going to be very helpful for quick adjustments like that. And especially if you look right here, I just did like a teal and orange without having to really do anything. I just made a few minor adjustments here, and I don't see artifacting or any other issues. I didn't have to use a qualifier to pull a mask for the skin or anything like that. Okay, so pretty simple, I think. And then that's like the basic stuff in it, and then you also have all this other stuff that I haven't even touched. Like, you can grab like this right here. If you've used like Blender or a bunch of other programs where you can paint to grab points, you can do that, and then you can move it. Okay. I haven't used this thing, this pin and D-pin. I'm not sure what that does. There's a bunch of things that I don't know what they do yet because I haven't had enough time to mess with it, but you can also fine-tune your adjustments. So is it not going to let me deselect? Let's see. Uh-oh. Come on now. Okay. Okay. There. Okay, there we go. So if you select all of them, it doesn't let you deselect it very easily. Anyway, what was I going to show you? Oh, yeah. So let me just show you down here. So here's my skin tones, right? Let's say I wanted to adjust the hue and saturation. I didn't want to pull this point like this because it's kind of weird. If I wanted to change the hue and fine tune it, I could just pull this hue slider, and then I could also pull the saturation slider. And then I could also, if I wanted to increase or decrease the luma values, I could use this slider as well. So you have a ton of control with this thing. And what I love about it is how it's visually, the visual representation. It's exactly what you'd expect it to look like with the controls. I always kind of hated that, I would have to, visualize this line and this color spectrum, and then also use this vector scope. Seeing them both as the same thing makes it a lot more intuitive, especially if you're newer, I think, to color correction, color grading, or whatever. Okay. Check the chat. Expressive imagery, that warp feature looks great. It seems to mimic what can be done in Cinema Grade on the Mac that Denver Riddle promotes. Yeah, I was going to point that out. I think you're talking, is that the one where you, let me just reset this. Is that the one where it's literally you, the whole thing about it is, look, I can grab this and change the hue? Like by just sliding, or moving my mouse, isn't that the whole gimmick of the program? Because I remember seeing that and I was like, that looks like a great way to get people into grading where you can easily do stuff. I can see where it like have issues, but it looked like a really great tool. And then I saw this and I went, ooh, that looks like the same thing. So, um, yeah, I just think that's so cool that you can just grab a color and move it. It's great. Every color correction program should have something like that, I think. I think it's really great. Okay. So the other thing with this was also they have this secondary part of the color warper, and this is your white balance, it seems, and then this is white balancing based on the luma. So like, yeah, so I can pull the warmth out of the highlights like this, but keep the shadows neutral. I think that's the point of this. Yeah. So if you look how that works, it's just a kind of a more visual representation of a what seems like a luma versus hue kind of curve, and especially like just picking like your, how warm you want it or how cool you want it. This way you can warm up your highlights, more like a warmer kind of film stock or warmer white point, and then keep your shadows neutral. Okay. Which I think is a good idea because then you don't have to use a qualifier or anything like that. And then you can do the same thing with your tint. If you have, if in your highlights or something, you, for example, in this, because it's these fluorescent tubes, there's this green cast. So if I want to remove the green cast like from this hair or from my skin, I can kind of pull this and it will remove that from my skin and from like the highlights, but it won't really affect my shadows. So I'll still have that neutral shadow. So I think that's neat. It's really cool. I saw in the demonstration they use this with clouds and with skies and stuff like that, and that was really cool. So yeah, I mean, this just using this, I don't know how much you can tell, but let me just zoom in here. So you can see there's a green cast here, and then as I pull that away, it removes that green cast, but it doesn't affect the shadows. See? Pretty cool. Okay. Oh, okay, so this here, grid 1 is this. Can't get into my, hold on a second. Can't get into my live stream for some reason. Wonder why that is. I'm a little annoyed by this. Give me a second, guys. I'm going to try to restart my stream feed and see if that fixes the problem. Okay, so just give me a second. Okay.